Let's talk about favorites a little bit. If you even have any, what is your favorite Little Big Planet game out of the entire franchise?
Oh, definitely one. No doubt about it.
Yeah.
Because I think, I mean, like sequels are, from a like creator perspective, are always a little bit weird.
Right.
Because from my perspective, Little Big Planet 1 and 2 in some ways were actually just the same project because, and I don't mean that because they're obviously two different projects. I just mean as a development experience because, and this won't be true for everyone in the company because, you know, everyone had different roles and it's maybe quite specific to working in audio, but, you know, I worked on Little Big Planet 1, went straight onto DLC and then straight from DLC onto Little Big Planet 2. And so that was all just one continuous experience. There was no like break there.
Right.
It's one of the reasons I think we actually, I don't speak for the company or anyone else, but like my feeling was very much like when we got to the end of Little Big Planet 2 and a bunch more DLC on that, although we started to hand over at that point to some other companies to help with the DLC before we sort of handed over the franchise, if you like. I remember like we were all absolutely knackered because we'd just been working our nuts off for years at that point,
Right.
and all focused on Little Big Planet, and nothing to do with, you know, it's not like we grew to hate it or anything like that. It was, but we were creatively like pretty drained working on Little Big Planet exclusively so intensely for such a long period of time. The thought of working on something else was really attractive. But yeah, Little Big Planet 2 for me, I didn't really enjoy that one as much as LBP 1. Like Little Big Planet 1 was harder in many respects because it was, we're like making the thing and making it out of nothing. Like any
Right.
you know new game, that's a challenge, but that's creatively very satisfying to do that and to solve those problems and get it all working. And yeah, I really enjoyed that process. It was the most enjoyable development process I'd ever had up to that point in my career. And yeah, it's up there. I don't know if it's been surpassed, but like I've had other good experiences. But yeah, Little Big Planet 1 was just a really great development experience. A lot of hard work, but I was also a lot younger and had more energy than I do now. You know, like I was, what age was I when I joined Media Molecule? I would have been 26, I guess. And yeah, shipped it when I was, 28. So I'm still pretty young, really. And when I joined, like I say, I only had maybe like 4 years industry experience when I started Media Molecule. So I wasn't like, it wasn't like my first rodeo, but at the same time, I wasn't like super experienced. And yeah, Little Big Planet 2, it felt like there was it kind of got off to a bad start for me in the sense that I didn't like some of the changes that were made, and largely just because it created some work that I just didn't want to do. I was like, oh, this is bullshit.
Right.
Very specifically, I can remember being really pissed off about the fact that so in Little Big Planet 1, I always loved that when you change the backgrounds, you got this really cool like whoosh, swish. So visually it was really nice, and then orally it was really nice too, because we had this like nice wind sound to like score that movement. And I just found that very satisfying and very pleasing. Little Big Planet 2, because they, for really literally for no good reason, just because the rationale was something like, okay, this is the sequel, we need to make it better, so we're going to change stuff to make it better. And some of the stuff they changed absolutely made it better, no question. But some of the stuff they changed, it was just being changed for the sake of changing it.
Yeah.
To make it look different. It's like, this is a different game. If it doesn't change, people will just be like, wait a minute, this is just Little Big Planet 1 you've conned us. So there's a real sense of needing to change stuff in order to make it feel different, so people can feel more comfortable about their purchase decision when buying a sequel, which from a commercial point of view, I completely get.
Yeah.
But actually, the right way to do that is to change stuff that makes it better, that actually makes it better. And I think that whole, and this is a really small little tiny, but like, I'm very anally retentive, so I'm still not over it, and still cross about it. Right. The change, and I can't even remember what the change was for the switching of the backgrounds, but it 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 wasn't as slick, and that sound didn't work the same way anymore. And I just remember being like, but the reason it had to happen was because I think the backgrounds had more were graphically more intensive. Like there was more going on in the backgrounds, and the big change was the backgrounds were animated. So not only did this transition not work anymore, and it went from being so cool to just being okay, but frankly just a little bit shit in comparison. But because we made the backgrounds animated, all of a sudden that meant that the backgrounds needed to have like additional audio work to score the animations. But also that's completely pointless work, because in Little Big Planet you build in front of the background. So then we had to solve this problem and create this tech where we would detect if you'd built in front of it, so we could turn the sound off that you'd built in front of. And it was all just like an exercise in pain and complexity that was, from my point of view, like, I don't have any problem doing additional work when it's needed, but when it's additional work that I feel is actually making the experience worse, I just remember being like, yeah, I'm not into this. And it's not like that represents what the entire project was like, because actually it was still, great company, great project. But yeah, that I remember that having that feeling early on where I was like, yeah, I'm not as into this. Like it just sort of set me off on the wrong sort of foot, if you like, at the beginning of working in the project. And I don't think I've got any other examples. So I clearly just am not over that, that very specific example. But in a way, and there's other little things too, which are more about maybe the conceptual side of things. Like the first Little Big Planet game, the high level direction it's like a journey around the world, which is, very simple, but there's a lot of nice things you can get out of a very clear, simple concept like that. The second game's concept is a little bit more. So first of all, it has to be different, because we can't just do the same thing again. If there is a high level concept for that game, it's something more a bit like it's a journey through science, through the ages, or something like that. So you've got like the Da Vinci stuff, which is, Renaissance, and you go through like there's like maybe like near future, more clinical, futuristic sci-fi thing, and then there's like Victoria's lab, which is more like Victorian Industrial Revolution. There's the Clive's, Factory of a Better Tomorrow, which is the sort of Soviet kind of era stuff. And so there's these different sort of historical places and stuff, and that's cool, but it's just not, it's a little bit fuzzier. It's not quite as it's interesting, but it's conceptually not as simple and as clear. And I'm quite a sort of conceptual thinker, and so I remember just also being a bit like it's just not quite doesn't quite click. It's not quite as nicely, it's not as pure as Little Big Planet 1. And so overall, the sort of way I feel about the project, and I have to say, like, I think the game is great. I think I love the levels. I think as a player experience, it's wonderful, and the game looks and sounds great. So I'm still really proud of it. It's just from a development point of view, I remember my overall feeling was one of just slight dissatisfaction with Little Big Planet 2. And that, like I say, that won't be representative of everyone in the team. That's just the way I feel about it.
Right.
And so, yeah, so for that reason, that when I say Little Big Planet 1 is my favorite, it's not, largely it is because it's the first, but also, yeah, I just have that sort of slight sort of tense feeling when I think about Little Big Planet 2, where it just didn't quite click for me, and I found it a little bit more painful to make that game. And then the last thing I'll say is that most of the way through developing that, it was the other thing that annoyed me a lot about it was, like, we were making all these changes to the game, some of which I viewed to be not particularly adding much to it and were arguably unnecessary, but we had failed to add a music sequencer, which if there was one thing Little Big Planet 1 really needed, and obviously I'm audio-centric, so I would say this, but I really feel like it was probably the biggest missing feature from Little Big Planet 1 was the inability to do any of your own kind of audio at all. Like, it was all just what I and the other folks that I'd hired had put together that you could work with. You couldn't record any of your own, or do your own music and stuff like that. So that was clearly, like, would be a massive upgrade, a lot of work, right? But like something that was just necessary and would have really added a lot to Little Big Planet. And quite late in the day, we still didn't have that. And I was really pissed off about this because I'd done all this work that I wasn't that into. And I was like, well, we're doing all this shit. Why aren't we doing the stuff we actually need to do? And so I remember being, really quite, angry. And I think I threatened to quit.
Oh, really?
That's how pissed off I was. And I don't know if that it made me feel better. I don't know if it made any difference, but it's certainly, like you can't be doing that kind of thing every couple of weeks because people are just like, oh, Kenny's quitting again. But there was only once or twice that I guess it was 3 strikes. You're right. I can remember 2 occasions where I was like, if we don't do this, I'm out of here. And then the third time I was like, all right, okay. So I did leave the company. So it's good to have to be disciplined and have your principles to stick to. But we did get a sequencer, but another reason we got that was because firstly I got a couple of weeks of Alex Evans' time for him to work with me, and we prototyped the UI for the sequencer initially on a like a PC prototype with Alex, and he did on a PC all the code for like what was the music sequencer like engine, if you like.
Yep.
And then it was a case of getting that to work on the PlayStation 3, and Matt ported over the audio code for the sequencer. But then the real difficult thing was actually getting the UI, and not just because we designed it, so taking that and putting it on the PlayStation 3 wasn't the challenge. It was how to do that within the world of Little Big Planet, and thinking about how to control that with the
DualShock 3. Yeah.
Thank you, DualShock 3. And the other thing, and the reality is that the only reason it happened was that the designers had been doing all kind of horrendous circuit board shenanigans for the cutscenes. There was no sequencer timeline for doing cutscenes. It was all be done with like timers, and it was like just a mess, and you couldn't tell what it was from looking at it. Even the people who built the levels were like, I don't know how this works anymore. So there was a very clear need for a timeline sequencer for just to get like that kind of linear sequencing stuff for the cutscenes that the team had been making. And because of that need, and that wasn't there for most of Little Big Planet 2, so it was just like a real dumpster fire. So Dave Smith, bless him, he created the timeline, and doing that work. And it's one of the good things is that he knew he had to make it work for the circuit boards, but also work for the music sequencer, and so he was able to tackle those both at the same time, which is it's the optimal way of doing these things. I'm sure you know, if you could do one thing, and then after you've done it, you go, oh, it would have been great if I'd known I also need to do this at the beginning, and then you have to go back and refactor your code and da. But Dave was able to get all that working from and it was a bunch of work, and it was one of those things, there wasn't actually time to do it, but we sort of made time for it, and Siobhan sort of wrangled the schedule to do it. And actually that game was meant to ship for Christmas 2009, but we didn't hit our dates. I remember the conversation where Siobhan, there was a team meeting, and it was everyone in the company there, and they're like, are we going to do this? Are we going to ship this game? Because it's not ready. It's going to be a bit rough and ready. It's going to be very, very difficult to hit that date in time for Christmas. And then we decided to delay it for it to come out. I think we came out in January 2010. I think I'm right in saying. I can't quite remember exactly. But that was a very difficult decision to make, because missing that Christmas market for a family-friendly game was not broken promises and all that. But I remember, I think it was the right thing to do, because if we'd shipped that thing, it would have been a hot mess.
Right. I think you guys had scheduled to release it in November of 2010, but it was actually delayed in January of 2011.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, I got my years out by one, but yeah, that sounds about right. So
right.
I like, but all those things, that little bit of extra time meant that some of those last minute things like the the music sequencer could get a little bit more time in QA and a bit more battle tested. So like I say, I've got a lot of affection for Little Big Planet 2 as well, but there was just a little bit more like sort of pain in shipping that one. So I don't think of it as fondly, but yeah, really proud of the end result.